Love them. Can't stand. I'm just kidding.
I was like, where are you going to go with this? All right, guys. We'll save the inside jokes for later. In the top left side of Romanta's side, we're looking at the main base of our German Protoss. He's 0-2 in the group, needs to turn things around. It is GunGFuBanDa.
And down here on the bottom right-hand side of the map, our red Protoss player. He is none other than Hellraiser. Just to give a little insight into the inside joke there. I remember there was a point where some of the players, this is like way back at like last year, beginning season 1 and stuff. Our producer was kind of still getting to know some of the players and stuff. And she said something, and I think she's come around. She still appreciates and likes all the players and everything. I'm not saying this all obviously in a very joking way, but I do remember very distinctly her being like, you know, Rainer seems a little too cocky for me. You know, I really like Clem. He's so sweet and stuff. And I'm like, oh no. I thought it was funny. I think she's come around on Rainer, but
everyone comes around on Rainer.
Everyone
is
does.
Best. Okay.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
I did enjoy it. For that
a while
period
ago,
of time.
A while ago, I tweeted out saying like, yeah, I'm obviously a bit of a Rainer fan, and someone's like, that's the understatement of the century. I'm like, I was like, to be fair, the guy's the world champ. It'd be very weird if I wasn't a fan of the world champ of the game that I have now dedicated 35% of my life to. You know, it's like, you know what? I just hate that guy. That's like the best in our video game. I just don't like him. Like, what kind of a weird take would that be?
Yeah. Hot take from Kev. He thinks Rainer is pretty good.
Yeah. All right, guys. This is a very important match for both of them. I don't want to get too dramatic, but this is kind of a must-win. If Hellraiser loses, he still has a chance. If GunGfu loses this one too, then I think it becomes almost impossible unless he just wins the next 4 and then 3 out of 4, 2-0 or something. But the TLDR is that it's going to be very, very unlikely if GunGfu doesn't win today. So he's gonna have to show his A game, and he's opening up with Adepts, which I'm personally actually a tiny bit surprised by here, Fear Dragon.
Yeah, so Adepts do have some benefits in the sense that you can get some additional scouting information, you save up a little bit more gas, you can do things like, you know, I guess get your sentries a little bit faster and stuff for the follow-up there. But what are like the downsides? Because I know downside-wise, I do think of like Oracle defense and things like that. You're not quite as prepared sometimes.
They also can detect Dark Templars. Kidding. Obviously, they are not very good in a straight-up fight, right? So it's now force supply that you're kind of just looking to harass with, which is okay if the game goes on. But if Hellraiser would have opened up with 6 Stalkers run towards your side of the map, then it can get a little bit uncomfortable immediately. And on top of that, yeah, once more, they also don't scale well. It's not like, we're going to have Resonating Glaives and that's when they're going to be great. Like, no. This is kind of a little investment that you know is not going to help in the big army fights, but yeah, I guess GunGfu just wants to get that scouting info and obviously wants to get lucky, but he's not going to get lucky against Hellraiser. That man is bulletproof.
Yep. Continuously building those shield batteries, a skill that every Protoss player has fully developed at this point, and definitely knows that they have to stay on point with that. But Pilot Council behind this for GunGFuBanDa is going to be finishing up around the time the Oracle does pop out, so we'll get to see what the unit tech choice is there. We do see a Void Ray following up behind the Oracle here for Hellraiser.
I mean, a while ago we casted Hellraiser on this map, and I forgot who he was playing. I think it was DNS actually last season, and I predicted DNS to win that series. And then Hellraiser just went full Diamond League Protoss, the Void Ray Immortal all the way, and he actually made it look so good. DNS just couldn't find an opening. I don't know why we're shooting at a 7x score there, but we did kill 1 probe, so that's nice. Whoa, Stalkers! GunGfu got you baited there. The Ronaldo Oracle juking the Stalkers, getting 7 kills. Okay, it does go down in the end, but I'd be okay with that, to be honest, man. 7 kills and lost mining time. You can't be upset about that.
That's incredible. Kev, you know what? I actually have no hate anymore for attacking the Cybernetics Core, because whatever it was a part of that beautiful thing that just happened. Losing the Oracle, like you said, is of course going to make this a little bit more okay there for GunGFuBanDa. But I mean, he's 10 workers down. He's literally got almost like 75% of the worker count that his opponent does.
Yep, and now he's gonna see that there is at least 1 Void Ray, 2 Void Rays, and I think if he's done his homework, he should remember the game that I'm remembering between Hellraiser and DNS. It's gonna be Void Ray Immortal all the way, and then down the line we might get some carriers too. And it's funny, this is really interesting to talk about because it's very different. There are so many different ways to play against this if you have the build and the opening of GunGfu now. I think one of the best ways is indeed trying to get a big economic advantage yourself, try to keep your opponent on at least 2 bases for a while. But this is romanticide. You're not going to keep them on 2 bases forever. I think if GunGfu gets 1 cancel here, he should be happy and he should retreat immediately. I love the hallucinated stalkers. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely going to make this look a lot scarier, but it looks like Hellraiser is unabashedly feeling like he can just take on this army. He's going to actually start going after some of the stalkers. Observer reveals which one of these are hallucinations. He immediately just target fires down the real stalkers and does a great job with that.
Yeah, and this was obviously then not good. I gotta say, big, you know what, by Hellraiser to not cancel that Nexus. I would have snap panicked that Nexus, snap canceled it. Be like, whoa, that's a pretty big army. But I guess he just looked at it. He's like, hey, you're actually not dealing that much damage to my Nexus. I think I'm fine here. Or maybe he's seen that move before. Yeah, so far it's so good for Hellraiser, man. Because normally the downside of playing a style like he's playing right now is that it's A, immobile, and B, it's supposed to be really hard to stay even on bases. Your opponent's supposed to outmine you. But because he has killed so many probes, he is not being outmined right now. And he's actually just heading into a stronger, beefier, slower, but just better army.
Yeah, with +1 air weapons on the way as well to complement those Void Rays even more. This is definitely going to become a very, very strong army. Just in terms of raw firepower, like the amount of time you actually get to fight against your opponent, the amount of micro ability you have to react to the damage and blink stalkers back and everything is going to be next to nothing very soon, as this army is just continuing to get stronger and stronger.
I mean, you look at the army supply now. What would happen if Hellraiser decides to run to the other side of the map? Instead, we have 2 Adept shading into this mineral line. At least 3 more probes go down. Can we get 1 more? Yes, we can. I mean, Hellraiser is playing a very, very clean game. It is a bit hard. This is in a weird way, kind of like Terran Mech, where even if you do a lot of economic damage when you play Mech, that doesn't mean you can just unsiege all your tanks and roll to the other side of the map and win the game. So there's definitely comeback potential for GunGfu, but I don't think he's loving his position at this point.
Yeah, one of the things that we've definitely seen Protoss players against like this kind of big Void Ray style be able to do is if you can just early on enough find opportunities to use those blink stalkers, go for the snipe offs on 1 Void Ray as you blink back. You can find those little openings, but I actually love the way that Hellraiser is basically, you know, setting up with, like you said, Protoss Mech. He has a full wall off at the normal ramp that you usually keep open to try and move out with. He's got cannons and shield batteries and stuff set up over there. It's going to be so hard because now the stalkers have to use their blink to get over the wall. They don't really have many opportunities to snipe off Void Rays that way.
No, they're not going to be able to do anything. Now we already have a fleet beacon going down. We are definitely going to see flux veins. When you have this many Void Rays, why not? And we can get some carriers down the line. Hellraiser did make 1 little boo-boo there while we were taking a look at the army of GunGfu. And that is that he rallied an observer straight into a cannon of GunGfu. So that's a bit of a waste. You don't want to throw away your observers like that, but we'll let it slide because besides that, he's been playing a very good game.
Ooh, nicely done. Does end up losing the observer, unfortunately, but snipes off one of the Voiders at the cost, I think, mostly just 1 stalker there. Those are the kind of pickups you want. You want to try and keep that Void Ray count in check. Warp Prism hallucinations going to be coming forward. I think there were 2 of them, but both of them are going to be revealed very shortly to be fake. Snipes off a cannon, which is maybe going to help open up the opportunities to attack in there later. And I think we saw the Templar Archives finish up there for GunGFuBanDa. One thing I really don't hate against this kind of Void Ray style is when a Protoss player does actually go for Storm, especially because it's not just the Void Rays, it even actually will trigger the barrier and stuff on the Immortals. Like the Storm can be really effective against this kind of army.
Yep, but I think that Hellraiser is also very good in avoiding fights where Storm can shine. I totally agree with you, and that's something that I often tell people as well. They're like, hey, how do I kill mass Void Rays Protoss? Like, Storm is good, but Hellraiser is a very good player. He's not just gonna sit in your Storms. He's probably gonna fly around, and eventually GunGfu is gonna be forced to take a very questionable fight with Stalkers. So I think maybe a better idea, instead of trying to slow the game down with Storm now, is to go up to 4 or even 5 bases, and then try to go into your own air units down the line. A couple Archons would be alright, because splash damage can be great, but I've seen a game like this before, and Hellraiser really knows how to close out an edge.
Well, there's a snipe off on one more of those Void Rays, but the Flux Veins finishing up means that these Stalkers have a much harder time retreating. A lot of Stalkers going to end up falling over there. Now, GunGFuBanDa has a bit of a bank back behind this. He can start to remax some of those Stalkers. But, Kev, it's like you were saying, it's not exactly the ideal army as you head into the later and later stages of this game, unless you just have a ridiculously high number of bases compared to your opponent.
But maybe Blink here. The thing is, now it's going to get awkward because he's going to be out of position. He turns around, prismatic alignment. One Archon is actually doing God's work here. Soaked up a lot of these Void Ray shots for quite some time. And this was actually one of the better fights that GunGFu was ever going to get. If it wasn't for that one Archon there, he would have been absolutely obliterated by those rays. But hey, that one Archon saving the day, giving a lot of extra time for these Stalkers to get some shots up. GunGFu completely back in the game, perhaps even in the lead for the first time.
Yeah, I think if we see, there's 13 Void Rays that have died so far this game. I'm not even sure how many of them died during that last little fight there. That was absolutely brutal right there for Hellraiser. And now GunGFuBanDa, he has a lot more opportunity to not just actually, you know, be more alive on the defensive against those Void Rays, but actually, yeah, offensively, he's got some firepower there. He's actually forcing the recall out from those remaining Void Rays as well, so doesn't have to worry about his main base getting charged up.
Yeah, plus 3 air weapons on the way. GunGFu does have that little proxy pylon and gateway on the right side too, so you can start warping in units from multiple angles, and he even has a warp prism. He's double expanding at this point. I love it. At least I thought he was going to expand too on the left side. Instead, he just wants to get gateways everywhere. It is cool, but this game is still far from over because there is no guarantee that the next fight is going to go as well as the previous one. That one Archon really came in ultra handy.
Yeah, in an ideal world, because Hellraiser did move out around like, I think 160, 170 supply there with just the Void Rays, didn't have any of the ground support or anything. What is the ideal time for Hellraiser to move out? Is it actually just wait until you're maxed out and then go?
Yeah, maybe just wait until you have carriers. Like, he can always send out a squad of 8 Void Rays through a weird path and try to get a good fight against them where only a couple of Stalkers could potentially attack the Void Rays. But I think especially when you have carriers on the way, you don't want to be moving out. You're going to wait, you're just going to sit, you're going to make Goody proud. The Goody will look at this and be like, if I was a Protoss player, this is exactly how I would play. And GunGFu is going to try to strike right before carriers are out. Could be kind of cool. I know it seems crazy to attack into all these cannons. We do have batteries in the back too, though. And GunGFu realizing that this is not going to be it. GunGFu did build a Stargate, though, right? Am I crazy? Yeah,
he built one Stargate.
But he never used it.
Yeah, I wouldn't have hated it even if you had just gotten like an Oracle or something just to tag with Revelation, see where the army is and stuff. Because, I mean, this is getting to the point now where Hellraiser on 4 bases is a little bit more spread out. He does actually have to get his army back between those 2 locations in a pretty short time frame.
Yeah, but he's got 13 cannons and 10 batteries. Like, I think he's going to be okay. GunGFu does pick up the Immortals there. Could he blink for the carrier? Yes, he can. He's going to get 1 carrier. That's nice. Even forces out a battery overcharge too. I mean, GunGFu definitely doing a good job in finding little pickups here and there, but here are the Void Rays to save the day. But now GunGFu is going to try his luck again in the natural. I absolutely love this wombo combo of trying to strike multiple locations at once, but I don't think he's going to break Hellraiser because once more, just too many cannons.
Yeah, I guess the one pathway I could see that this starts to work out is if he is finding still these trades, and they don't have to be optimal trades, but if you can do this and also deny a 5th base from ever going out there, eventually it's a point where Hellraiser does start running out of funds. He starts running out of minerals to rebuild the interceptors or remake these carriers. These are great pickoffs.
Yep. Hellraiser not clearing off enough units there towards the bottom, ends up losing 2 Void Rays and 1 carrier. Doesn't lose the other carrier, that is the most important thing. Void Rays are going to keep the bottom safe, but how's the fight in the natural going? Well, why did he go back? No, that was your opportunity. The entire army of Hellraiser was at the bottom side.
Mothership's over here now. That is actually going to help out quite a bit with the protection against that army, especially with the little cloak there. But a lot more of these Stalkers come on forward, sniping off even more of these Voiders. GunGFuBanDa is doing an amazingly good job at this. Disruptor is going to complicate things a little bit. It makes it a lot scarier to blink forward now.
Yeah, this is actually such a fun PvP between GunGFu and Hellraiser. GunGFu is definitely playing incredibly well, even gets the Nexus. However, that doesn't mean he's just going to win this game, because now +3 air weapons is done. There are 5 carriers in production. But what could become very complicated for Hellraiser is actually ever moving to the other side of the map. Because the moment he moves out, I'm pretty damn sure that GunGfu is just going to pounce on the 3 bases that Hellraiser still has, and you still need a couple of buildings to potentially win this game.
Yeah, that is definitely going to be a problem he's going to have to worry about. Stalker's continuing to try and poke and find little bits of damage, and now the 3rd base is exposed. The main base for Hellraiser is mined out at this point. I mean, there's barely 130 minerals left over there. The natural expansion's only got 4 mineral patches and doesn't have that much gas left over either. This is definitely hitting that point where Hellraiser doesn't have a bank or anything saved up. Every one of these units he is making is costing quite a bit of his remaining resources.
But I still think it's very hard to call who's actually winning this. I think that Hellraiser should mine out this little mineral wall, by the way, and potentially just take the high ground expand with the rich Vespian gas. Like, it's so funny because Hellraiser's army is clearly a lot better than the army of GunGfu. But then GunGfu's army is a lot more mobile. GunGfu also has the better economy. But it's a bit deceiving because he only has 1100 gas. So if he takes a bad fight, he can't even remax on good gas units. This is still anybody's game, and I'd love to see how it plays out as GunGfu is going to try to pick up a couple of these big units. This one did not really work out. I mean, he got some probe damage by the looks of it with his other army, and he just lost a lot of Stalkerinos.
Yeah, I feel like it's going back to what you were saying, though. As long as he can remake those units before the big move out over here, and he clearly is able to, as he's already maxed out. And now as this army is chasing his stalkers to the top right, the 3rd base goes down. There's actually almost no mining left over for Hellraiser now. He is effectively forced completely all in on this point. He has to win the game on this army. In the meanwhile, GunGFuBanDa is on 14 warp gates, warping in stalkers nonstop with a bit of a bank, and he just gradually has to trade.
Yep, Hellraiser's gonna split up his units. Hellraiser realizing what time it is. It's still gonna be very hard for GunGfu to kill all these carriers, though. Make no mistakes. The Void Rays have flown home. Void Rays obviously very fast. I still think Hellraiser can win this game, as crazy as that sounds. He only has 25 workers, but he's got 111 army supply that I really just don't think he's ever going to lose a fight against Stalkers alone, and that's all that GunGfu has.
Well, one of the Void Rays going down. Oh, big blink forward onto the mothership. Gonna be able to snipe that off. Gonna lose a lot of stalkers in the process, but his focus firing down these carriers, one-shotting them until enough stalkers have fallen now. But we have 7 carriers remaining, 55 interceptors. Strike that. No, we have Hellraiser tapping on out. GunGFuBanDa takes the first game.
Stalkers and Stalkers alone. As a few more Stalkers shown up in the natural, and Hellraiser maybe just losing a few too many key units there in the center. You know what was actually really sick? Is that GunGfu realized that Hellraiser just used prismatic alignment with all of his Void Rays. It wasn't a couple Void Rays that used prismatic in the natural, but all of them used prismatic alignment. And that's why Hellraiser was weaker in the center than I think he was supposed to be. Like, imagine a world where 5 out of those 15 Void Rays would have activated prismatic alignment with all those Stalkers blinking under an army of carriers, a mothership, and then all those Void Rays. Then I actually think he only loses like 2 carriers and he wipes the floor with all the Stalkers. But really sick call there by GunGfu to just go for it immediately, realizing that the Voids won't have prismatic, which makes a very big difference.
Yeah, it is definitely one of those games that I feel like it's easy to look at and be like, well, yes, as Team Liquid forums have told me since the beginning of time, like macro and just take more bases and everything, and you can beat your opponent regardless of the composition. But actually executing that, like you kept highlighting there, Kev, is a lot more difficult than it looks. Even if you take the map and everything, it's very easy to just take one really bad trade, and it takes you a little bit too long to remake all of those Stalkers to actually reuse all that bank that you have and to take another fight that actually is effective. It's something that can absolutely snowball there if you aren't careful about your control.
And I absolutely love that he just said, like, all right, this is romanticide. You're always going to get 3 bases. But the moment you want to go up to 4, I'm going to make life a living hell for you. I think GunGfu really displayed phenomenal control with 2 armies that could have gone terribly wrong. But he actually just kept finding windows. And you could really see that Hellraiser was struggling a little bit in trying to figure out how many units he needed at the bottom and how many units he needed near the natural. He was always overcommitting or undercommitting. It was never the ideal split. And I also love that GunGfu didn't slow the game down. Yes, Storm is very good against Void Rays, but it would also allow Hellraiser to just get the Dream Army and do whatever the hell he wants. And he's like, no, that's going to be too hard, because then it's going to be carriers and disruptors, and you're going to have a good economy. I think it's better to just keep the pace very high, keep the tempo up, and trying to pick you apart. And honestly, a phenomenal game by GunGFu. I'm very impressed.
So am I, Kev. I feel like we've talked a lot about like the last 10 or so minutes of that game. I do want to rewind it back and ask you like the hypothetical, what if those Void Rays that were making their way across the map didn't just get jumped on, and that Archon, of course, was really, really helping out as well in that big fight and everything. Like the Sentry also throwing out the Guardian Shield that helped out a little bit. Like if that hadn't happened, if those Void Rays didn't get picked off over there, there is that world where maybe with those Void Rays, like the max out comes a little bit faster. There is an opportunity to move out before, you know, the base count's up to like 4 up for GunGFuBanDa in that situation. Like, what do you think that game looks like there? Do you feel like that still could have worked, that approach for GunGFuBanDa without that engagement?
It would have been very hard because at that point Hellraiser was economically totally fine and just had a better army, and he already had Flux Veins, right? So his army was actually mobile. So no, I think that was an absolute key moment. Great catch by GunGFu, and I think it was a game-saving moment because even if he, let's say, is in position to defend at his main, you're gonna get one of these annoying scenarios where the Void Rays are gonna be in airspace and only a couple of Stalkers at a time are gonna be able to fight at once. This was one of the best spots on the map to fight that many Voids, one MVP Archon. No, that fight changed the entire game, 100% sure.
All right, well, that gets me really excited, Kev, because you have a game one like that, and there is like this interesting world where it wasn't just that GunGFuBanDa destroyed and dismantled that approach. Like there was that kind of one moment that Hellraiser might look back on and be like, I need to be careful about not doing that. Don't take a fight like that. And if I can still carry out like this plan, this approach to my PvP and taking out GunGFuBanDa is valid, and maybe he'll feel like that is going to be a good way to still approach game number 2. But you were also mentioning Romanticide is maybe like that's part of maybe the reason that approach works is being able to guarantee those 3 bases.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that has a lot to do with it. You can maybe say that like on an Oxide or Blackburn, could he potentially pull it off? But I really think it's a Romanticide special, and I don't think we're going to see it again. I think it's maybe Death Aura, but yeah, we don't play on Death Aura anymore. So it's gonna be hard on any of the other maps, I think.
Yeah, it's I mean, it was definitely a very hectic and crazy last game. So I'm even just trying to remember some of the other things, like the Oracle that attacked the Cybernetics Core, then juked and jebaited the Stalkers and killed, you know, 8-9 probes or something over there before going down. Like, there's a lot of crazy stuff that happened in that game that I think shouldn't expect to be necessarily repeated in game number 2, but it really does make this series feel pretty open-ended in terms of what could potentially happen. So I'm excited.
Yeah. I mean, we thought it was going to be close, and I think that first game just confirmed it, right? Hellraiser with a good start, Hellraiser with a lead, but then eventually takes one bad fight with the Voids. Then GunGFu is kind of in an okay spot, but it's just Stalkers against a much stronger army, but he did such a good job. I did not expect GunGFu, because right now he's 0-2, 0-4 in the group. Sure, he lost against great Terran players, but you never really know what kind of shape GunGFu is in. To pull off the style that GunGFu played in the previous game is really hard, and I really think you need to be in excellent shape to be confident to play like that, but he clearly was. So let's see what the German, who's obviously made out of raw German steel and twisted sex appeal, is made of here in game 2 on Oxide. It is GunGFuBanDa.
Down here on the bottom left-hand side of the map, the red Protoss player from Team Demonicatis Esports. It is Hellraiser. Demonicatis? Demonicus?
You're struggling, I'm not even trying, mate.
Demonicopotamus. Just, yeah. I'm not sure. It's a cool looking name. It definitely looks like one of those really cool Latin names with a very cool logo that's like a shield or something.
I will once more just leave this up to you. I'm sorry.
All right, fair enough.
I make a fool of myself so often already, Fear Dragon. This is all on you, mate. Don't track me down.
I'll take the hit. You know, this is important to shout out the teams and everything, especially when it is one of those teams that I think Hellraiser, probably one of the star players for the team, and he's definitely been doing them proud, I think, for the most part, but is going to be looking for a way to come back in this series. Now, Kev, talking about Romanticide versus Oxide, you're saying maybe. Like, what do you think about Oxide as a map? As I know this is definitely a map that you oftentimes almost always see the attempt for like a fast nexus.
I just love how you said, like, it's definitely a very cool Latin American team. And I'm like, let me take a look. Location, Singapore.
No. I didn't say no. I said a Latin name, not Latin American.
Oh, like, okay.
I think Dominicatis. It sounds like very Latin.
Marsman is on the team, the Dutch Protoss legend. I'm actually... Marsman is a great dude. But yes, we see Oxide very often. This is obviously a map where we want to go one gate, fast expanse, and all that kind of jazz. Now, sometimes people decide to spice it up and then make it seem like they expand, but then they don't expand, and they just one base Void Ray all in you. Zess is the absolute best at it. I don't think GunGfu is going to do something like that, though.
Yeah, hopefully that's probably not going to be the case, but I do see the usual kind of openings over here, but a small little difference is that GunGFuBanDa does kind of cave in and say, yeah, I'll make my tech a little bit faster over here since you're blocking my Nexus, and he does go for that Stargate just a tiny bit earlier on, wondering if Hellraiser is going to be thinking about turning down like a Twilight Council or something else instead earlier, because he is just throwing up actually additional gateways instead.
Second gate must be 2-gate Twilight, and anything else really wouldn't make too much sense unless he goes Robo and like a weird 4 or 5-gate, but I'd be kind of shocked to see that. Hellraiser took an interesting route with his little Zealot, as GunGfu is going to realize that Hellraiser's got a full wall of at home. There's a Twilight. Now Hellraiser has a Zealot on the other side of the map. I think he was hoping that GunGfu would have also rallied his Zealot to the other side. Why do we have a double Twilight, mate? And they're right next to each other. What's happening here?
They're off time, so they're not something built directly next. Like, that's got to be a mistake, right? Like,
of course.
This isn't gonna be some like sick charge blink attack, right?
I mean, there are moments, and people make fun of me for this, but there have been moments where it's very unique. But I'm like, you know what? Double Twilight is actually good here because I really want blink, I really want charge.
He's looking at
but he's gonna cancel it, of course, yeah. But that's like one of these bizarre scenarios where maybe you've contained it Terran for a little bit with shield batteries, and you're very far ahead economically, but you couldn't quite sneak in the tech, and then you know they're gonna attack you with a wonky economy, and you're like, I want blink and I want charge, but in PvP, it's just never, ever a thing. And all the pros will also tell you it's never a thing in PvT, but I will stand by it. Once in a Blue Moon Fair Dragon, once in 300 games, the double Twilight is real. It's like a unit.
You know, Kev, one of my favorite games was like an NA game. This is a long time ago for the player named Saravati. And he built 2 Twilights. But he built one at the front where like the Hallucinating Phoenix would scout. And he built one in this like far corner of the map. As the Hallucinating Phoenix came in, he cancels the Twilight, so his opponent knows the Twilight got canceled. And then he goes for a quick blink attack.
Big brain. That's really smart.
One of my favorite moments. But you know, we don't have any of that going on over here. We do in fact have Twilight Council turned on for both these players, and it was actually GunGFuBanDa who goes for the Dark Shrine with his.
Yep, but Hellraiser has scouted it, and that was very important. Obviously, if he wasn't going to scout it, I was definitely going to interrupt your story, but I'm glad I didn't have to, because I love that story. I remember the name. I don't really remember much else of him, but I do remember the name. Casted a couple of games of him too, actually.
He was one of my favorite players, just because he was like one of those super innovative, like creative players. He would do things like go for, I think it was like, but this is like early Wings of Liberty kind of builds where he'd go for a Zealot, like a 3-gate Zealot attack versus Zergs, and he'd bring 1 sentry because he realized that if he tagged every Zergling with a sentry once, it'd be the equivalent of having +1 weapons. And it was just an attack with like 5 or 6 Zealots at a point where he was like, yeah, I can just micro this and then I'll just basically 2-shot all the Zerglings. I'm like, oh, this is really cool.
Now, Hellraiser is going to expand quite a bit later, which gives me the idea, obviously, that he wants to be aggressive. Now, the good thing is that he didn't invest in a Stargate, he didn't invest into the Oracle. The Oracle didn't really deal any damage up to this point. But I still don't know if that is good enough to then just run to the other side of the map into your opponent when there is potentially a defensive battery, maybe even an overcharge. This stasis trap here could be big for GunGfu. I love it. He's moving out. Oh my goodness. I mean, it's too big, actually. Like, it's actually bad when it's too big, because now he can't kill anything.
Yeah, I guess the biggest hope that you can really get is that your opponent isn't going to reinforce before the stasis actually expires and you can warp in more units. I don't know why that word was so hard for me to remember.
You see that cannon? That cannon is MVP. First it almost kills the Oracle, then it just one-shots the stasis trap. Now Hellraiser has made it to the other side of the map. There is one observer with his army, so defensive DTs are not going to keep GunGfu safe. But yeah, we don't have any charges, so it's not like he can make a crazy Blink Stalker Zealot attack. But hey, Hellraiser's done a good job in catching up in workers. He's dead even in workers, and he's even the one who fired up +2 before. So even though the attack didn't accomplish anything, it did scare GunGfu, and he managed to tie things up economically at home.
Yeah, definitely going to work out in that regard. Too bad he didn't have that second Twilight Council get charged a little bit faster, Kev. Am I right?
No, I don't think that would have really worked out.
I don't think so either. Yeah. We do have the War Prism making its way along the right-hand side. And most of the units for GunGFuBanDa have been on this far left-hand side, dealing with a little attacks here and there. Even the Oracle is actually heading over to the left-hand side. So there's maybe an opportunity for Hellraiser to get a bit of damage done over there, especially if GunGFuBanDa is thinking about moving out, as he is starting to move his army further forward.
Yeah, I don't think there is like a real opportunity for either player in the upcoming minute or so. This feels like defender's advantage is going to be too powerful. So I guess now the big question is, does any of them embrace the disruptive war? Because this is definitely the kind of game where you could look at what your opponent is doing, where you're at in the game, and be like, second Robo Bay, let's go. I think I can safely make it up to Disruptors. And if you want to end the game before that, that's fine. Then I think I will have enough defensive units. So it's kind of the next step, I think, for both of them, or maybe just for Hellraiser.
Yeah, and what do you think about adding, like, we do see the Temple Archives coming out over here for GunGFuBanDa, and with Charge and stuff coming out, could also see just like the adding on of a lot of charge lots and Archons and getting into that composition first? Or do you feel like going for the Disruptors actually is going to be able to deal with that pretty well?
I think if Hellraiser wants to chill on 3 bases, so he doesn't go up to 4, I actually don't think he needs his own Archons. Like, he could wipe in some DPs. He doesn't have a Temple Archives, but he does have a Dark Shrine. But I actually think just defending Stalkers are going to be fine. I don't think he needs to go for his own Archons. But I also think he could have already dropped a Robo Bay if he wanted to go into Disruptors. So I'm actually a bit confused. What do we have in that Prism? It's a couple of Zealots heading towards the main base of GunGfu. If he kills the cannon, he could warp in DTs.
Yeah, immediately drops the Zealots right on top of the cannon, warps in a few more of those DTs, and is going to be able to wreak absolute havoc here in the main base where all the warp gates are. A few more cannons are actually finishing up, but I think that the pylons getting focus fire down, and the recall should be able to clean things up.
Yep, but Hellraiser did save his War Prism and the 3 Dark Templars. There is the Robo Bay for Hellraiser. I just kind of wish he would have dropped it a while ago, man, because he really had the money for it. This was a good move, though. I like the way that he's playing the second game here on Oxide. GunGfu is actually kind of all over the place. Stalkers are going to blink there. They see an Immortal. No, this is not where you want to be, Hellraiser, because you don't have any Zealots yourself with this army.
Yeah, only a portion of the army. It's the mobile portion of the army that's there, but he does spot the army moving its way over, so he can at least pick away at some of the Zealots. Might lose a Stalker or 2 on the retreat. Has managed to keep one of them at least alive, but he knows GunGFuBanDa is looking for a big attack here now.
Yeah, but this is going to be big. Hellraiser is going to send a lot of Dark Templars into the natural. If I'm Hellraiser, I would really not bother defending all 4 bases. Just focus on defending on 3. You've got a lot of shield batteries. You maybe have defensive cannon or so. You should be fine. The Dark Templars are definitely going to mess GunGfu up. GunGfu does not have recall anymore, so GunGfu is probably going to try to end it. But it's so hard to end it against all these shield batteries of Hellraiser.
Yeah, this is going to be really, really tough to actually break through on when you're on a bit of a timer over here. He is trying to find an opportunity to attack in, but even just attacking up the high ground against the shield battery overcharge, his Immortals can't even get to the front lines to take good trades against those Stalkers. The DTs, they barely were starting to get cleaned up, so he turned them into Archons. He does eventually end up losing that, but already still a good amount of damage done.
Yeah, Hellraiser was obviously very busy with this big army of GunGfu, and I think his DTs were derping for a little bit. They weren't actually on an attack move. They were running in circles. But he's still holding. He's got a Disruptor on the way. Disruptor shot from the high ground is big. That's a lot of Stalkers down the drain. There's another Disruptor that's not going to connect with anything. Hellraiser, you can just warp in a couple of Zealots too in your main base, mate. Make life a bit easier on yourself. He's going to warp in the DT now in a Zealot, and this is just a crazy fight. And honestly, it's been a crazy series between them. GunGFu still has the bigger army, but Hellraiser has +3 attack. And if he kills the Prism, he should be able to stabilize.
Yeah, the DT is still putting in work during all this. Finally, the Observer makes its way forward, and Hellraiser actually blinks away from the army. He's going to turn this into a base trade, it looks like. But at this point, Kev, Recall is definitely off of cooldown. So I feel like already GunGFuBanDa has done enough damage. You can do this, see the armies there, and then get ready to just recall back.
Yep. And I think that's exactly what is going to happen. Now, the only issue is that its army could be a little bit too big to recall. So you don't want to recall half your army, right? We've all been there, where you think that you've got the game in the bag, but then suddenly you only recall 6 Stalkers and 2 Immortals, and that's not going to be enough. GunGFu does have a lot of money in the bank, so he can warp in plenty of units. But at this point, he says, you know what? I'm not recalling at all, mate. If you want to win this game, you're going to have to clean up my army.
0 gateways soon to be left over here for Hellraiser. He's already rebuilding some of those at his 3rd base, so that's definitely going to be a bit helpful. I don't think he has a cybernetics core. He's still actually building one right now. Whereas it does look like all those stalkers for Hellraiser retreating on back, finding all of these probes over here for GunGFuBanDa. There are still 11 left out on the map right now, but Hellraiser's looking to defend.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much his only choice. He's going to use battery overcharge, blink forwards, probes are in the mix too. GunGFu is going to gun down that shield battery. A couple of zealots here would be amazing, but Hellraiser is kind of blocking the path of his own zealots. The Archon is derping a little bit, but it doesn't matter. GunGFu still just has too much.